Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Restoring Nature Show. Today, I am here with Sarah Brill from Kiwi North. So, welcome,
Hi.
Sarah,
Thank you. Thank you for
and
having me.
thank you for having me on your lovely location as well and
Yeah.
showing me around the um, species first of all as well. That was
Yeah.
a great insight into what you guys are doing. Could we first of all just have a bit of an introduction about yourself?
My background is sort of a history and ecology, zoology with a bit of conservation biology. And my main sort of passion is sort of educating people, but also having actual conservation outcomes for the animals that I work with. And so I never thought I'd get into captive stuff with animals, but that has the best of both worlds where I can work with the animals, but also show every type of person these animals as well, and sort of illuminate what's out there. People don't always know what's out there, and if they don't know what's out there, they can't love it, then they can't want to save it. And that's sort of my sort of passion. So I have a lot of experience in the captive world, but I also have a lot of experience out in the wild as well. And so I'm the team leader here of the conservation native species team. And so we have a few native species here for people to observe. They can come and have a look at them in their native species habitat. We're also doing a lot of work on site here, and we hope to do more work in the future. Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess part of that kind of goal of yours to show people what species we have that they're not seeing, that kind of ties into the species that you love the most, doesn't it? The ones that people can't see most of the time.
Yeah, so my main passion is ectotherms, so reptiles, fish, invertebrates, and amphibians. And in New Zealand, unfortunately, a lot of those species are quite cryptic. So people don't actually realise how many species we have. We have over 100 reptile species, but people think we just have one or two because that's what they see. And those are exotic. For us, for me in particular, it's showing people, giving them the chance to experience things and see things up close. Something like a weta, which people will automatically be afraid of because they haven't actually experienced up close. They've only experienced it by putting their foot into a gumboot and it's scaring them. Whereas if they can see them up close and they can see where its ear actually is and look at its antennae and things like that, then they can at least get a healthy respect for them and not want to kill them, and actually
Yes.
understand why they're important and then why we need to look after them. Yeah.
What if you had to choose one reptile species, what would your favorite one be?
That is a very tricky one. For me, it is actually a skink. It's a tricky one. Probably the Capatea skink, which is a skink that I've worked with. It's found in the South Island, and I was lucky enough to be involved with the salvage project with that. When I was at Auckland Zoo, so it's got a prehensile tail. So
Wow.
the theory is that its habitat wouldn't have just been the grassland at the back of the beach. And when we were lucky enough to have them while they were working out if they could go back to their native habitat, where they actually ended up putting a predator-proof fence, we set up some trials to see if they climbed and things like that. And so it was quite an exciting thing to be able to look after the species while they were assessing its native habitat, but also learn more things about it. Does it eat native berries and things like that?
Mm.
And so that's why they're sort of my favorite species. But it's to other people it's just a brown skink, but you look at each one of them and they've got different markings and they've got special markings and they all act differently. So,
Mm.
and that's sort of why I think I came to love them, because I ended up working so closely with them. Yeah.
Very cool. So the prehensile tail, can you talk about what that means for the listeners?
So a prehensile tail means that it's sort of like our fingers, and so it can hold on to things. So when we were handling them, you would, if they started sort of running or something, they would also grip onto your finger with their tail, or they'd grip onto the side of the cup when you were weighing them with their tail. So we were noticing that sort of thing, and also the dock workers who worked with them were noticing that as well. So prehensile is sort of able to grab onto things with it. So yeah,
Very
so a lot of
cool.
geckos have that as well.
Yeah. And is that one of the few skinks that does though, is it? Or
From what we've seen, we know that muckle skinks do it as well. We've done it in captivity, but the problem with our native reptiles is not a lot of work's been done with them. So the more work we do with them and handle, then you find another one that does it. And so it might not be rare, but it's just we just don't know, which is one of the cool things about getting into sort of the ectotherm field in New Zealand. Is there's so much out there and there's not a lot being done. There is lots being done behind the scenes, but there's still way more that needs to be done to
mm.
find out. Our birds are charismatic and exciting, and there's a lot of work being done and we know a lot about them, but the reptiles, there's just not a lot. And that's where sometimes bringing them into captivity when they need help actually helps us learn more about them. We didn't for sure know that they ate some of the species of berries that they eat, but because we were able to film them and offer them those berries and we saw them, then we're like, okay, they do eat those. You can
Mm.
guess and you can hypothesize, but until you can actually observe it, you don't know for sure. And that's where that was quite helpful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And let's just take a bit of a back step
Yeah.
back to your childhood. So whereabouts did you grow up? Was it you were an Auckland person,
No, so
Northland?
I grew up, we moved quite a bit, but I grew up mostly in Canterbury until I was about 12 when we moved to Wellington.
Yeah.
And then sort of once I hit university, I moved from Palmerston North back to Wellington, then over to Sydney. So yeah, I've moved around quite a bit. But yeah, most of my young time was in Canterbury, which has got a lot less bush
Right.
and a lot different native species to the North Island as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were some of your favorite kind of nature spaces back when you were a
Ah.
child? Perhaps in Canterbury or
Yeah, so my favorite sort of nature spaces when I was growing up were things like the braided rivers in Canterbury. Me and my granddad used to go there quite a lot. The beaches and any kind of bush. So like beach forests was what I grew up with. So when I moved to the North Island, I was like, where are all the beach forests, you know? So yeah, basically my main thing, my happy space, I guess, is forest in the bush. Yeah.
Mm. And was it known to your family and friends as a kid that you would grow up to be a conservationist or a nature person?
Yeah, so my parents thought I was going to be a marine biologist. That was because when I was around 12, I was quite into that sort of thing. But I think they always knew that I was a bit different. You know, I was the kid at pet days that took my geckos.
Yeah.
Everyone else had a bird or a dog or a cat, and there's Sarah with her reptiles, you know, and I was always trying to keep things or look after things, or I was sitting out there seeing which flowers the insects went on and which flowers they didn't, what shape were there. So I was always sort of interested in what was happening around me in the natural world. Yeah, so they always knew I was going to do something, but I don't think they were quite sure what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. When did it transition from marine biology to more ectotherms and that sort of thing?
So reptiles has always been my thing, but there's not when growing up there wasn't a lot of stuff out there, especially
Right.
for a woman. Like for a girl, that's weird. It was weird growing up. I was unusual. You know, it was like, no, that's a boy's thing. You don't do that. I think when I ended up going to Massey University in Palmerston North and found sort of a group of people that it was okay. It's okay to like, you know, that was cool. They were like, you like lizards and insects?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, you know. And that group of people is where I found my husband as well. It made it it wasn't a closet thing anymore. It wasn't like I'm into reptiles, but I won't tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. So it was, yeah, when I found that group of people that like it's okay and you can be yourself, you can like lizards, and that's when it was like, okay, no, actually, I don't want to be a marine biologist.
Mm.
I want to do reptiles and native stuff that's not a bird, sort
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Cool. And then after studying, you went to and worked at Auckland Zoo.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be one of the first interns that they took on. So it's an internship where you get basically you're full time there as a keeper on a chosen section that you chose. And I had applied to either birds or ectotherms, and luckily I got on the ectotherms, and I had a great experience, and that really solidified the working with the animals, but also being able to talk to people and being able to share our passion, our skills, our experience, not just with the people that came to the zoo, but to go out with Doc and do work with them, and to go out with the council and do work with them, and also any schools that came in. So it was a great merging of my passion of sharing my passion and skills, but also being able to still work with the animals, because there's a lot of conservation work that you don't actually get to see the animals you're protecting, you're doing trapping, you're doing that. But whereas the side that I got to work in, and we get to do both, best of both worlds. And it was a great chance for me to start pushing sort of my passion to get more, I guess, woman into it, or at least be like, it's okay. You know, growing up for me, it wasn't okay. And it still was hard work to get into that sort of, it's very male heavy in the reptile world as well, and in the invertebrate world. And you can turn up somewhere and they don't expect to see a woman, you know, and it's
Mm.
like you have to then prove yourself again and again and again. So for me, a lot of what I'm hoping to push in the future as well is it's okay for anybody to be into reptiles, and everyone can have the same skills and experience, and you just treat everyone as a reptile expert no matter who they are, and so that's sort of, yeah.
Amazing. And I
Yeah.
guess being at the zoo would be a perfect place to do that because you're in front of everyone showing your skills caring for the animals and
Yeah, and that's where I think Auckland Zoo's doing really well, is they're doing a lot of advocacy not only for the animals but also the people that work with the animals. So they have been doing a lot of work about the science of care and how institutions like the zoo and what we do here and other zoos around New Zealand, what we actually do behind the scenes, and so how it is actually science based and how we actually are experts in what we do. No matter who you're seeing, everyone that works with them is highly qualified and passionate about what they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. And it perfectly set you up for your next job up here, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfectly ready, ready to go as team leader up here of quite experienced and passionate team, and with big visions for what we can do in the future here.
Moving on to Kiwi North then. So how long have you been working here for?
So I've been at Kiwi North for almost 2 years now. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it.
Yep.
But yeah, 2 years and hopefully many more.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you're the team leader of the conservation and native species
Yeah,
team.
conservation native species team. So we chose that name. It was previously called animal care, but we decided to change the name to sort of encompass not only what we do, but our vision and our passion and where we hope to go. So we currently do mostly just captive, looking after the animals that we have and we are lucky to hold. But we have a bigger vision to be bigger than that, and to become not only the Kiwi North grounds, but to have to support our local community and our local even DOC and the regional council and anyone who needs support either in surveying or reptile handling or anything that we can offer. We would just hope to be either a resource or able to link people to who else can help them, and just sort of be like a place for people to come if they need some advice.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Kind of a central hub for like the Northland area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully. That's our big vision.
cool. Awesome. And so what are the main kind of things that Kiwi North do?
So Kiwi North, we're not just sort of Kiwi. We also have our museum and heritage park, and then our animal side, we have a lot more reptiles than we actually have kiwis. So we've got a range of them, and invertebrates as well. And we also do all our own pest control on site. And then we also support so we have an educator here, and so our team supports the educator to deliver programs to schools, so we can offer our expertise in identifying insects and take classes out into the bush, identifying trees, and help the educator. Also, we can give up close encounters with our reptiles, so mostly our gecko species, so that the children coming in, they might not ever get to see a kiwi in the wild or a gecko in the wild, but have an experience where they can at least get that moment and have hopefully spark something in them that they are then inspired to do something or learn more, or hopefully that sort of thing. But not just the children, but adults too. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't know what's out there, and unfortunately it can be a shock to people who work in this sort of profession, is that people don't realize the number of reptile species we have or the number of vertebrates. And so for us, just trying to inspire or spark a little curiosity about something, so that then people can then work out what they want to do to make a difference, because it's all good people telling you what you can do, but no one wants to be told what to do. So it's trying to spark a curiosity, to inspire something in people, to then they sort of motivate themselves either to come back to us and ask us what they can do, or to find it out themselves. Yeah.
Very cool. With those gecko encounters,
Mhm.
why isn't it the skinks? Why is it the geckos?
So the geckos, we have conditioned them for handling. So we have quite strict protocols on which geckos can be used, how long they can be used for, and how often. And the skinks are a lot more flighty than geckos,
Yeah,
and they don't often take to it very well. And it wouldn't be great for their welfare to start that conditioning process. So it's better for them to be observed in their habitat that they live in than the geckos, which is the geckos have had a lot of conditioning, and they're more, I guess, more chilled out.
mm,
They more casual. They kind of they're happy to sit in your hand, and we are close observing them obviously while we're doing it. So as soon as they're not, or we can see they've had enough time, we put them away. But yeah, the skinks are a lot more flighty
Yeah.
and a bit.
I can picture it just kind of running up the arm and then jumping off the
Yeah,
shoulder and
whereas a gecko will
gone.
sit
Yeah.
nicely. So yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
it would be cool, but yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
work as well.
And I
And
guess
yeah,
if
we always put the animal welfare above people's enjoyment, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you walked me through the species exhibits, you were showing me the kind of changes that were made since last time I was here. I was here at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Could you walk through kind of the kind of design that is there now?
Yeah. So in the native species habitats and area, we sort of wanted to give people more of an experience rather than what was here before, which was like sort of walking through hallways. We wanted to make it more immersive, and sort of a taste of what we hope to achieve in the future with our future developments and things. So we started off with the idea of 24 hours in the New Zealand bush. So starting in dusk. So it's a more going into nocturnal habitat, and then into the night with the kiwi, and then coming through dawn corridor, which is a little transition to get your eyes ready for the day, which is the day one, which has all our reptiles and things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And so the nocturnal area, that's where you've got the biggest gecko in New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah, so we have the Duversales gecko in there, and so it's actually a different change for us. So it was displayed diurnally, so during the day, and so we're trialing it. Well, hopefully it will work, but to display the Duversales gecko at nighttime. So we reverse cycled them, so their day is our nighttime, and their nighttime is our daytime. So that way people can see them, like the kiwi. And so that is the biggest gecko we have in New Zealand, and we're lucky to have 3 of them here. Yeah, they're pretty cool. They look like mini crocodiles.
Yeah.
Everyone really likes them.
And the idea is that they'll be more active because they're nocturnal species, aren't
Yeah,
they?
that's the idea. We're hoping
Yeah.
that they'll do a bit more than just sitting there or hiding. We're hoping that people will be able to see them, observe them with their natural sort of foraging behaviors or things like that. So hopefully we'll see. We're keeping an eye on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I understand that most geckos are nocturnal, aren't they? So
Yeah.
you've got a few geckos in the daytime area. Are those all nocturnal, or have we got some diurnal
So
geckos?
the thing, as you'll know, with nature is that everything likes to break the rules. So most of our reptiles are nocturnal, but if something happens, they like the food source is out in the day or the basking comes out that they want, they will be active during the day. So the other thing with the geckos is they don't have eyelids. So we can't tell if they're sleeping or not. So they could just be asleep all day in there. We do have the elegant gecko. Sorry, the common names I'm really bad at. All the scientific names is what I'm used to, so I'm trying to like. So we have the elegant gecko and the Northland green geckos, which are active at night, but they're really avid sunbaskers, so they can be really active during the day. And then the other ones we have in there, the forest geckos. So they are primarily nocturnal, but they can be active during the day, and they most of the time spend in that habitat on the trunks of the trees, and so they could just be sleeping in there, but we're not sure. We monitor everything with all our animals, so the fact that they're on that cycle doesn't affect their welfare at all, and we offer food appropriately as well. So they may be active, but most of the time you'll be observing them as you would in the wild anyway, which is be on the trunk of a tree or refuging somewhere.
That was actually one of my questions, was how do you know when they're asleep, because they don't have eyelids?
Yeah, sometimes you can, when we go in to feed them or something, you might get the idea that they're asleep because they seem like they're shocked that all of a sudden there's food there. But yeah, it is a tricky one. We don't know. Same with the fish. We're like, are they asleep or not? It's with if you give them a fright, sometimes you think they're asleep. But yeah,
And another interesting thing about most of our native lizards is that they are, I got to get this right, ovoviviparous.
yeah,
So
yeah,
many V's in that word.
yeah.
Yeah. So could you talk about what that is?
Yeah, so that is that they give birth to live young, but not like mammals. So mammals have a placenta that's connected to the parent, whereas our native reptiles, they kind of like form in like an egg with a yolk internally, but then they are given birth to live. So there's no egg that gets laid or hatches. They give birth live. And our geckos, which is pretty cool, give birth to twins pretty much every time. And our skinks can go from anywhere from like 2 to 8 or more we don't know, because some of them we don't haven't had, in captivity. So
Could we maybe just talk about some of the species that we have? So you've mentioned the elegans gecko, the Northland green gecko, forest gecko,
we have Duvetales.
duversals.
So we've got
What other species have
so
you
we've
got?
got at the moment we've got Feller's skinks. So they're a skink species which is restricted to the Three Kings Islands up the top of Northland, and we're trying to focus at Kiwi North here on like Northland species or things that we found around Northland, just to make us a bit different, because you can go to other places and they've got all the species, but we thought we'd focus on things that are relevant to the Whangarei community, to the Northland community. So that way we've got a place for our community to come to and go, this is here. So feller skinks, while they're not on the mainland, they're off the top of the North Island, and they are a big skink. They're over 30 centimeters total length, and they are a very interesting skink, and they're very special because they are only found on those islands. And there is sort of, I guess people think there's interactions with different plants on that island, on those islands, and with the birds there as well with those skinks. But they're also like a charismatic skink species, which some people don't always put those together. But they're very active, and they're very, I guess, confident species for people to watch and observe, and to realize that we don't just have those little brown skinks that run around in your garden. We've got these big skinks, which are pretty cool. I mean, while we don't have the big dragons and monitor lizards that other countries have, we've got, our reptile species are unique and very special and very different. That it means that people from all over the world want to come see these animals because they're so different. How many of of the reptile species overseas live for 50 years or more? When it's a little gecko, most of them live for 5-10 years. It's pretty cool
Yeah,
what we've got. Yeah, and so I think that's all our current species that we have, but obviously we're hoping to provide more opportunities in the future, we're a work in progress here. Yeah.
yeah. Are there any species on the horizon that you're hoping for or waiting for? Or
So people will remember that we did have tuatara, and that is in our history. We are hoping to get them back, but we will be building a new habitat for them. So until that's ready, we won't be able to get them back. Not just because they're tuatara and that's pretty cool, but it's important for people to see what we've got. And tuatara, while they are doing better, they're still conservation dependent species. And so if people then rest on their laurels, they could go downhill again. So it's important for our community to see tuatara. And that's one thing that I'd like my kids to see as well. And I guess just a bit more variety, so some more skink species, and who knows, in the future maybe some bird species that need help, or there's more. The thing with the captive world is there's such restricted spaces, and so if you start breeding and then they can't go to the wild, there needs to be more places for them. So we're hoping
Mm,
to be able to house some more different species, not only for people to see, but so that we've got a good captive population that can be used as a backup if something happens to a wild population or something like that. Because all of the things we do, the animals still remain completely wild. So we're hoping in the future to have a bigger range and more things for people to connect with, and so that there is opportunities for every person to find something that they connect with. Yeah.
yeah. So there's not just lizards and kiwi here. There's also some other kind
Yeah.
of smaller critters.
Yeah, so we have a range of invertebrates, and we really want to focus on that as well, because that's a really accessible thing for everyone. You can go in your backyard and you can find an invertebrate. You can't go and find a kiwi unless you live in the Whangarei Heads or something. Me and the team really wanted to have just everyday insects as well. So we've got stick insects and katydids, things that you'll find in your backyard, but you might not necessarily even consider that they're there or even think to look at them. So, the sounds you hear at night, that's the katydid, the little zit, zit, zit. We've got those so people can see that, connect what that sound is to that insect. And we also currently got monarch caterpillars. While some people, there's a debate on the native side of it, we think they're here, they're native. But we also want to show people, people go, oh yeah, monarch. But if you actually watch the caterpillar munching on the leaves, or you watch the chrysalis hatch or a caterpillar turn into chrysalis, it it does something to people. You learn something, you connect with it. So we've got some of those, and that sort of is a precursor to, we're hoping to have the whole bank outside the windows that you can see through the day corridor turned into sort of a butterfly garden. So having the native species that they host, sort of things like admirals, coppers, and things like that. But also we will need some exotic plants to show as nectar plants. But it's a good example for what people can do in their garden to support native butterflies, but also have a nice looking garden and have it there for people. Yeah.
Very cool. So that will be kind of outside in the kind of through the window, won't it?
Yeah, through the window initially, and then we're hoping in the future to have like a walk-through area. And then at the moment it will be free flight. So basically we're not caging the butterflies in. So we're just trying to attract them and show people what they can do. And who knows what we'll develop in the future with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I think you mentioned that there were some kind of ideas or plans for an outdoor enclosure for the lizards as well.
Yeah, so that's our hope is to get all our reptiles outside. It's at the moment inside. We are doing the best that you can do inside, with all the UV lights and the temperature control and the growing live plants and things like that. But ultimately, we're in Northland. The UV is good for them outside. The climate's good for them outside. Why not have them outside? Save us the stress of trying to provide the best environment for them, and also get them out in our Northland climate so that they are outside. It's better for them, better for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's on the cards as well as a future project. But as we are a charitable trust, it's all reliant on funding. So that's what we've got to work out as well. And we're also working with our local hapu Te Parafo as well around creating these habitats as well, so that we include the holistic approach to the animals. So we're not just coming from what people want. We're also coming from what spiritually is good for the animals, what culturally is good for the animals, and what best practice and things like that. So we're trying to take that sort of relationship as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the long-term goals for the species that are here? Are they to be kind of released? Do they get released and then new ones come in, or what's the?
So it's different for each of the species. So we'll start with the kiwi. So the kiwi we're part of the captive brown kiwi program, which is administered by DOC and ZA, so Zoo and Aquarium Association. So they have a stud book, and so all the brown kiwi in captivity are managed as like a population together. So the kiwi that we get here, they are hatched in captivity, and they're part of the breeding program. And depending on what their genetics say, the stud book keeper sort of tells us where they go. So we have them for about 2 to 2.5 years. We get them at about 6 months old, and then those kiwi are either sent out to the wild, or they're put back into an organization to like Auckland Zoo or another breeding site like Willowbank or Arana Park for the breeding program. So that breeding program supports the advocacy for kiwi, so having them in nocturnal houses, but it also the other goal of it is to support the wild population. And so those kiwi, depending on what we get told, they get sent either back out, no, not back out to the wild, out to the wild for the first time, or back to another institution that's breeding them. As for the reptiles, some of them were rescues. The records are really patchy. So some of them have been here for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
So when I'm like looking through records, it's tricky to work it out. Unfortunately, with that means that they can never go back to the wild because we don't know their origins. Some of them probably have had issues that they can't go back to the wild because they probably wouldn't hunt very well. There's a few here that are quite not very good at hunting.
Yeah.
But they are all here for advocacy. So our main focus currently is advocacy. So they're here to advocate for their wild counterparts. And while they're here, we do the best that we can to give them as natural experiences as possible. The Duvercells geckos are part of a breeding program as well, or a stud book group. So currently there's no breeding at the moment because they've just split Duvercells into two species. So
Oh, have they?
yeah, so we're trying to work out which is which species. So they've realized that there's actually two species. Tohu, I think, is the other species, and then Duvercelli. So we're just waiting on which species we have, and then that's sort of coordinated, so where different animals go. But all the other ones, it's sort of you manage in your own organization or as a private holder, and then we sort of collaborate with other places to move different animals around. So it is the hope in the future to get involved with sort of breed for release programs or things like that, but that's needs a lot of science and a lot of permits and things like that around that, and to get things to go back out to the wild, because you've got to think, where did they come from, and then there's a lot of screening and what are we putting back out to the wild and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because different populations will have slightly different kind of traits, and you want to keep those from getting
Yeah.
too mixed up.
Yeah, we don't want to
Yeah.
mess with what's natural, as we've already done enough, I think.
Yeah. Could we talk about some of those, some of the challenges that Kiwi North deals with? Are there any
I guess,
financial or?
yeah, a major challenge is funding. We are a charitable trust. It means that we do get some funding from Whangarei District Council. We're lucky enough to get some of that, but that only covers, I think, it doesn't even cover all of our running costs. So the rest is self-funded through admissions through our doors and any other funding we apply for. So any obviously expansion or changes we want to make, we need to either budget it in or find some more funding. So we're lucky enough to get funding for some of our sort of educations stuff, and some of the volunteers we get in, we can get some funding for that, but trying to create sort of brand new habitats can be tricky to get funding for. And so we're getting pretty good at being quite resourceful and sort of using what we have, or what working around different ways, which is different to what I'm used to. I'm used to having a bit more of a budget and a bit more freedom to, we need more lights. Okay, we'll buy more lights, or and we'll just buy this enclosure. So it's trying to work out that sort of thing. And then I guess the other main challenge we have is we have a big site here. Just we've got a really nice piece of bush, and we've got huge visions to develop it. But my team is sort of three of us, three and a half. We've got a part timer, and then we've got two maintenance grounds in the team. So our people capacity is low. We've got passion and vision, but we get exhausted because we've got so much to do, and we want to get it done, and we all really want to get it done now. So it's sort of also tempering our expectations, I guess, and what we can achieve and when we can achieve it. But we know we will achieve it one day. We might not still be here, but someone can take over.
Yeah.
We can set it up. So yeah, those are our main two challenges: is funding and people power, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the plans for the bush?
Yeah, so we've got a small piece of bush, which we're hoping to, one, we want to survey what's there. We are doing pest control at the moment, but also we would like to sort of develop that bush site into a more of an experience for people. So when they walk through, they can be learning as well, or at least being inspired by things. So we're actually looking at having areas, intentional areas of, like, this is sort of what we've decided to call sort of the mini beast classroom. So there's things for people to lift up and go, what's under here, rather than just flipping some rock somewhere. We'll have some wetter houses and some onduline tiles for people to lift, and sort of explain what they might find there as well. So have like some signage there. And then another area, this could be the fernery. So have intentional areas explaining why different plants are important, why it's important to have all the different things in the bush together. So that's our hope for that. And then to eventually sort of revegetate a lot of the land as well, maybe. But it's a wider project, and we also have, everyone has different ideas, because we're not just conservation native species. We're not just a museum, we're also a heritage park. So we have the trains running through. So what will work for the trains might not work for us, and what we might want to do with it might not work. So we've got to work with the clubs that we have on site, which are not just the trains. There's the Vintage Car Club, there's the Radio Club, there's the planetarium, which also needs less trees around it so you can see the sky. So we've got to consider everyone as a whole, because that's what we are. We're a whole site with a lot of experiences that people can have here. Yeah.
Yeah. And right beside the planetarium, there's a bird hospital, bird
Yeah,
recovery.
bird recovery centre. Yeah.
Is that kind of associated with Kiwi North at all? The kind
So
of their own.
they're their own thing. So the Kiwi North land has sort of, like, we call them tenant sites. So we're lucky enough to have them as a tenant, and they've been here for quite a long time now. And so they provide quite a lot of support they're the only place in Northland that you can bring a sick bird, injured bird. So they do a lot of really important work, especially with all the seabirds that come in and things like that. So yeah, we aren't associated with them, but they're a tenant on our site, and we're lucky enough to have them here, and
Yeah.
so people can bring something, because otherwise, where would they go? You know, they'd have to go all the way to Auckland.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would your vision for Kiwi North be in like 50 years' time or
Oh,
100 years' time? What do you see this place kind of evolving into?
I would love the site to be a mix of cultural and natural heritage, but also looking to the future. So being a site for people to come and actually see conservation work happening, and sort of be an, I guess, a little snapshot of what you can do and what is being done out in the bush, or out on the islands and things like that. So I'd love it to be almost the whole site predator free, sort of with a fence. And then you come in and we have the clubs open so people can see stationary engines going, or like a little mini motat type thing down there. But also then you go through the bush, and we have other native bird species wandering around because they've come from Pukenui. I'd love to see a relationship through with all of the, conservation groups sort of in Northland, sort of working together and being able to direct people's either money or skills where it needs to happen, and sort of be like a real good example for the rest of the country of what you can do when people work together and put our skills and our passion together. And what it actually looks like, I don't know what it would look like on the site, but yeah, I guess my vision is to be just a collaboration and a unity of skills, experience, and passion, and actually using that energy, like direct it really well, and then see what comes from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, I could imagine that kind of tying together the kind of technology side, like you mentioned, kind of like a mini motat and things
Yeah.
like that, kind of tying that in with the nature side kind of shows that those two things can
Yeah.
kind of intermingle. It's not one or the other.
That's
So,
right. We don't have an option anymore. We're like this and nature's like this. We have to work out how we go forward together. And yeah, I think that would be a really,
mm,
really cool thing to see. Yeah.
amazing. For anyone out there that is wanting to get into nature or working with native species, that sort of thing, what kind of advice would you give them?
I guess for me, so the advice I would give is just do it. Get out there. So get lots of experience. Volunteer where you can. I mean, I did a lot of different volunteering with doc and things like that before, while I was studying. I wouldn't say you have to study. That's not, because that puts people off, and I don't think that it's necessary in some aspects. You need the science, but you can learn stuff from people. So if you can't, some people just don't do well at university. So for me, it's get hands-on experience, volunteer, do internships, find out what you're passionate about, work out what it is, and then go with it. And I guess for me as well, if it people think you're weird, then everyone's weird. Everyone has different passions, and it's getting not worrying about that. And I know that's hard, but now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, why was I worried? But I think, yeah, just really find that passion and find those people that you click with and that you support each other to be better, and find where you feel safe to do that. I mean, I'm lucky here, my team, we just sort of bounce off each other, and we just keep pushing and sort of push those, what we could achieve, what we want to do. And it fills your life, makes it happier rather than worrying about hiding, you know? So yeah, just find what you like. It doesn't have to be one thing or another. If you like the broad, then go broad. But yeah, just go for it. And it doesn't matter if you are good at study or not. Just, you can get practical skills. You can learn it on the job. It just is a bit harder to get your foot in the door.
Yeah,
But yeah.
very cool. So there you have it. Own your obsessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me as a kid, I was a very big dinosaur nerd.
Oh
That
yeah.
was that was me. I didn't quite go down the route of paleontology, although that was kind of what I thought I would as a kid. But
Yeah. That's a tricky one to get
yes,
into.
yeah, and it involves a lot of maths and
Oh yeah.
stuff to kind of
No.
work out where the bones were before they got warped by
Oh
time and things
yeah.
like that.
No
So
maths.
yeah, where can the listeners go if they want to find out more about Kiwi North, or if they want to get involved or anything like that?
So they can head to our website, so kiwinorth.co.nz. My team also has an Instagram, so we're Kaitiaki Diaries, or our Facebook page as well, or just, yeah, so on there you can get in contact with us or pop in. We're always here. Happy to talk. Any questions, I found this insect, what is it? Bring it in or email it in. We're happy to help out. We're here. We love finding out new things or seeing what people have found. Obviously, if it's a lizard or something, don't bring it in. Don't touch it, just take a photo. But yeah, anything, we're here. Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, I suppose we'll round it out there. So thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you.